Mitch Lafon here, inviting you to check out my interview with guitarist Richie Kotzen. We talk about his new album, Salting Earth. We also mention Poison, Winery Dogs, and Hall Oates. Before checking out Richie, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. And with that, and without further ado, here is the one, the only, guitarist Richie Kotzen. Richie, a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, so I've got to say I've had a chance to listen to the album, and there's two songs in particular, I've Got You and My Rock, which just mentioning the names right now are giving me goosebumps. They are absolutely fantastic, and they're just fantastic songs on an overall album that's just absolutely mind-blowing. So let's just talk about putting this album out and getting it together.
Well, it was interesting process for me, the way I work, because a lot of times I think when people think about making records, they picture someone sitting down and writing a bunch of songs over a specific course of time, be it a month, 2 months, or 3. And then they picture someone booking a studio and taking all their equipment there and setting up and recording the record in, anywhere from 3 weeks to a month and a half. And then going out and touring. So that seems like a very normal, typical process, but that's not how I have ever really done it. I've done it like that in the past once in a while, but in more recent times when I make solo records, it's a much different process. And it's a process that kind of goes on and off throughout the course of a year or more. And so, for example, with this record, there's a couple of songs on there like End of Earth, Divine Power, Meds. Those 3 songs in particular were all kind of written around the same time and not totally finished either. Just kind of, I went in the studio and kind of got them to a certain point and then forgot about them and moved on. And then, there's songs like Make It Easy that nobody knows, but that song has existed on my hard drive since 2003 without lyrics and without vocals. So it's an interesting process. I also I moved recently, but in my old house that I lived in for the last 20 years, I had a studio set up, and so everything in that studio was always mic'd up and ready to be recorded. So what that means is that the drum set was always there with microphones on it. My keyboard set up, I had a Hammond Leslie cabinet, guitar cabinets there, bass signal path, my vocal signal path. Everything is always pretty much set up and ready to go. So if I have an idea today, I can go in and work on it. And if I don't finish it, I can go back to it 2 months from now and work on it again. So that's really how this record was recorded. Some of the songs were really written in more recent times, and some were started to be written years ago. But at the end of it, it's how it comes to be. And most of my records are recorded that way, especially more of the more recent ones.
Now, talk to me about the title, because it brings, of course, the expression "salt of the earth." Was this you really trying to get back to the basics and the fundamentals and just making a very down-to-earth kind of record?
No, it has nothing to do with that particular expression. Salt of the earth has nothing to do with salting earth. I kind of came up with that lyric in the song End of Earth, and at one point I say in the song, I'm salting a bit of earth. And to me, when I said salting earth, I'm thinking in my mind about what people leave behind. And so, you leave something. And for some people, it's something really big. It could be a film that changes the course of culture, or it could be something much less glamorous and more personal to a group of people or one person. And I think for me, it's music. And so I've been really fortunate seeing going traveling the world and seeing people that have listened to my music, and every now and then you see someone show up, they have your lyrics tattooed, to them, or they have a story, something simple. We used that song when we got married, or this other song got me through a hard, hard time. So the title "Salting Earth" is in reference to what we leave behind when we move on. I'm salting a bit of earth, and it ties into the song, End of Earth. The thing was, I didn't know what to call the record. A lot of times I pick an album title because it makes sense, but this time I didn't have a song title, rather, not an album title. I didn't have a song that I thought would be worthy to title the album. Then I was reading the lyrics, and that popped into my mind, and that sentiment of what I was thinking about when I wrote the song, and I said, yeah, that's my title. That's what I'm going to call the record.
Talk to me about some of the musical influences, because, when you listen to a song like I've Got You, which I mentioned before, and My Rock, I'm getting a sense that it sounds like this old school sort of Hall Oates kind of thing. Is that sort of some of your influences, those kind of bands and Prince and that kind of stuff?
It's funny. So many people compare me to so many people that I have not been influenced by and hardly listened to. But you nailed it on the head. I grew up, I'll never forget. Well, first of all, Daryl Hall, his family, he grew up 8 miles down the road from where I lived.
Right.
So he's obviously a superstar, but especially where I was from. I mean, people worshipped Hall Oates, and so I can remember being in school, either kindergarten or first grade, listening to Rich Girl and singing it and thinking I was getting away with something because the word bitch is in the song. And me and my friend would sing that. And so the whole sound of they call the Philadelphia sound.
Right.
And there's a specific productions with the strings and the way they did things in that area. That is just embedded in me. And so you're absolutely right. I'm glad you caught that. A lot of people don't get it and know where it comes from. But I grew up listening to Hall Oates and of course, Stevie Wonder and Sly and the Family Stone and, of course, Prince and all those people. But the Philly soul thing was so powerful where I grew up. And so it's not even intentional, but when I write, and you hear it in a song like My Rock especially, it has that feel. But that's just because of where I'm from. If I grew up, if I was born in Madrid, then we'd be talking about a whole other kind of record.
The Madrid sound. No, but
I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so that's what the music sounds like.
Yeah, because I almost could sort of close my eyes and I could hear Daryl singing that, and I was like, wow, that's just a testament, by the way, to the quality of the music on this album, because those guys are. They're no slouches.
Hey,
right?
For me, that's a compliment. In my opinion, he's one of the best of all time, and so that is a compliment for me. So yeah, I'll take that all day long. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely meant that way. In the end of March 1991, Leo Fender unfortunately passed away, but you have been a great user and proponent of Fenders. What is it about that particular instrument and that particular brand that really speaks to you?
Well, it's interesting. I was very young, and I was realizing quickly that the guitar I was playing, which was back then, it was an Ibanez with the locking tremolo and stuff. My musical tastes and where I was going was leading me into a different direction. And that particular instrument that I was playing back then, at the age of 18. I played that kind of an instrument before Ibanez. It was a Kramer guitar, so it was like 15, 16, 17, that era. The whole locking nut thing and the way those guitars responded, it was not adding up. It wasn't working. And so I went to the music store, and I bought a Telecaster, and I bought a Strat. And so they became my primary instruments. But I was still signed to Ibanez, and so they started making me like Telecaster copy guitars. And by then I was in the band Poison. I had all my Ibanez Telecaster copies sitting there, and the guys from Fender showed up to give the bass player a new bass because he was with Fender. And they said, we're going to give you 2 real guitars. And they gave me the Tobacco Sunburst Telecaster, which later became instantly my main guitar, and then later became my signature model guitar. and a red Stratocaster. They were the first two guitars. And then I signed with Fender, and they made me, I think, like I ended up with eight master-built guitars, Tellys and Strats. And then in '94, I was putting out a record, and my management had approached Fender about running some ads in some of the magazines to help promote the record. And they said, well, our ad quota, or whatever they called it, is full, but we had a request from Fender Japan to make two Richie Kotzen signature models, one Telecaster and one Strat. So we did that, and for many years you could only get those guitars through special order. And about 5 years ago, Fender decided to release the Telecaster worldwide. So now, for the last 5 or 6 years, you can get the Richie Kotzen signature model Telecaster anywhere, Guitar Center or Sam Ash or Sweetwater. If you go on the internet,
right.
Like to order stuff, wherever you go, get it.
Right. Or Long and McQuaid in Canada, where I am. And it's a great sounding instrument. It's just it's just a great sounding instrument. I want to go back, since we're back in '91 here. Let's go back to 1990. Fever Dream, your second solo album. The first one you decided to sing on. How did that decision come about? Were you always sort of confident in your voice, and on the first one, on Richie Kotzen, you just said, no, I've got some instrumentals? Or did you sort of have to build into, okay, I'm going to have to sing, I'm going to have to use my voice? Was there any kind of fear going into that, or excitement?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I made the first record, and right after that, like after doing the instrumental record, I found it so stressful, first of all, and I found it unmusical in a sense of the style of what I was doing. It felt like almost like an Olympic marathon. Like it didn't feel artistic as much as it just did like, all right, how crazy can I play? And so by the time it was done and out, and I was thinking, God, I don't want to do that again. If I'm going to make music, I got to make music that is consistent with what I grew up listening to. And this instrumental record was a great vehicle to get me out of, Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, but it's not where I want to be. And so I started writing vocal songs. And I had sang in my cover bands, not very well, by the way. They would give me like 2 or 3 songs to sing. One of them I would get up and be the front man and put the guitar down. And back then when I was a teenager, apparently I had great stage presence. So people loved it when I did that, but I wasn't really a great singer. But I started writing these vocal songs, and I had always written vocal songs. We had actually recorded a little EP my band did when I was like 16. So I started submitting these vocal songs to my record label, and I had the guys that were in my cover band at the time. There were 2 guys that I thought sang great, and so I had them. One guy sang on a song, the other guy sang on a song, so I was kind of auditioning singers. And it was Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records who was listening to the music and said, what, the songs are cool, I think we can work with them. These singers aren't killing me. They sound fine, but I'm not excited about any of them. And he said, I think in order to do this and have it be interesting, I think you should sing your own songs. And until he said that, I wasn't even thinking about doing it. And I was like maybe 18 or 19. And like I said, I had sang, on and off my whole life, but never very well. And so he started saying, just listen to singers that you like, Who do you like? And then I was like, well, I like, Bad Company. So I started listening to Paul Rodgers and Free. I got into some old Rod Stewart stuff. And then around the time, Terence Trent D'Arby record came out introducing the hard line, which then I got obsessed with trying to sound like Terence Trent D'Arby. And so I would try to copy everything that he was doing. So that he probably became like my first major influence as a singer. And it's probably why I have the tonality that I have in my voice, is from listening to him. And so anyway, I remember I flew to L.A. and we did a cover story with me and Nuno Betancourt and Red Beach for Guitar World. And then I got on the plane and went up to San Francisco, and I started my second record, which I was going to sing on. And it was kind of crazy. I mean, I kind of didn't know what I was doing in a way, because the producer wouldn't let me just kind of sing. He was trying to change the sound of my voice constantly and trying to force me to sing with a lot of air. So then by doing that, I ended up losing my voice. So I got stuck up there for like 3 months in this studio. It was like a farm. I was up there for a long time, and my voice came back. And so on that record, I'm singing. You can hear the potential of what I would become, but at the same time, you can kind of tell that I didn't quite know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
And then, really, almost instantly after that, I found my voice. And by the time really instantly after that, I found my voice. Because I remember there was a song on that record called "Dream of a New Day," and within a couple of months, I got signed to Interscope, and they wanted to put that song in a movie, and I insisted that I re-sing it. And so I went back and I re-sang it, and I replayed the bass guitar. And then, so within 6 months after doing that record, everything just kind of came together. And actually, you can hear it. If you go and you listen to "Dream of a New Day" from Fever Dream, and then go get the Bill and Ted Bogus Journey soundtrack and listen to that version of "Dream of a New Day," you can hear the difference in my voice. It's radical, and it's not really that much time that passed between those two recordings.
And of course the Bill one that's the one that's sort of your favorite version, I guess, at this point.
Well, between the album version and the movie version?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer the movie version, because I think I'm singing much better on that. But, I mean, I haven't listened to it. I mean, hell, that was how long ago? I mean, I'm 47. I think I was 20 when I did that.
Yeah, well, it's like 26, 27 years ago. Yeah. After that, Electric Joy comes out, but then you do the Poison album, Native Tongue. And I don't want to talk about the whole Poison thing. I want to talk about the machine, though, because, you're at Shrapnel Records, and you're with Mike Varney, and, it's like a boutique sort of record label and stuff. What was it like getting into that sort of in corporate machine that is Poison, in the way they organize tours and the way they organize albums? What was sort of the learning curve for you in that situation?
Well, it was kind of cool in a way, because I went from being in the studio with with no budget on Shrapnel Records, very little budget, to suddenly, I think the Poison budget for that record was $2.5 million that Capitol advanced us to make the record. So it's kind of like you go from having $20,000 to make a record to being at the most expensive studio in Los Angeles and playing ping pong in between takes, while the engineer edits the drum take. I mean, it was kind of surreal. But, that record was, it was a fun record to make. I really had a great time, and actually creatively, I feel like we made a really great record. I think, we took the band in a whole other direction, and, it's a record that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great songs on there, especially Stand. I was just curious, just what it was like, though, as a 20-year-old, you're doing the stuff with Mike and Shrapnel, and like you said, all of a sudden you've got this $2 million budget. I mean, there has to be some kind of lesson learned coming out of that, aha, Was there any lesson learned at all, though?
No, not at all. I mean, other than, hey, we're in the studio making a record, and we don't have to rush. We can take our time, and we can put some money in our pockets at the end of the day as well. I mean, there was no real lesson per se. I mean, it was an experience like anything. I mean, anything that you go through that, there's good and there's bad, and you have an experience, and then it kind of carves out the way you think and the way you make decisions and that sort of thing. So there's probably all kinds of lessons there, but, nothing that you're consciously aware of, if you know what I'm saying.
Right, yeah, absolutely. The Winery Dogs, 2017, you've all taken it off to do your own thing. Billy, of course, is doing a new Mr. Big album. What is sort of the plan in terms of getting back together? Is 2018 already penciled in as a Winery Dogs year, or are we not there yet?
No, nothing's penciled in. Nothing's planned. Doesn't mean that it won't happen. I mean, it just really, for me, I'm kind of free and loose with things. I'm excited about this record I just made, so I want to get out and play these songs, and I'm excited to be back playing with my guys. We've played together, Dylan and Mike and I, been together for 6 years touring, and we have a great rapport, and it's a whole different kind of thing that we do when we play. That's exciting and fun. So I'm focused on that, and so you never know. I don't close doors, and I think the Winery Dogs was a really cool band. I think the fact that first record was so well received, and frankly, I didn't expect this to be an ongoing thing. I really thought, hey, let's get together, make a cool record, and then, go back to whatever. And so suddenly it was so well received that, we decided to jump right back in, do another album cycle, whatever. But, after my record runs its course and I tour, it would be fun to go back with Billy and Mike and see what they're up to, how do they feel, what do they want to do. But at the same time, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? All I'm saying is I'm not penciling or inking or writing anything, and I'm just kind of taking it day by day and enjoying the fact that I'm going to go out and play some new music that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, I've looked at the tour dates that have been posted for now. I haven't noticed anything in Canada. Is there at some point a Richie Kotzen Canadian leg or a Toronto date or a Montreal date? How much are you going to do in terms of touring?
Well, we've got 5 weeks in the United States, and then we're going to Mexico, we're going to South America, we're going to Japan, Australia, Europe, a lot of touring. And then we're going to do another run in North America in October, and I'm hoping that we can get to Canada. I want people to understand something, the way it works. I do a lot of things. I write songs, I perform, I do, I engineer a lot on my records. I do a lot of things. What I don't do is book my shows. I'm not a booking agent. And so the way it really works is that you have someone that you trust that looks at a lot of things. They look at routing, they look at budgets, and they take everything into consideration, and then they tell you where you're going to play and where it makes sense to go at what time. And so, unfortunately, we don't have a Canada date. I definitely ask for it, and I say I want to do it, but it's up to them to find the right show, the right venue at the right time. Hopefully it happens. We are doing another run in October, so I'm hoping we can put it together then.
Yeah, I'm hoping too. And it must get frustrating as an artist when people say, well, they never play our town. But I've always told people, yeah, well, blame your promoter if a band's not playing your town. Never blame the band. Richie, this has been a great conversation. Salting Earth, absolutely phenomenal album. I mean, I was blown away. I had an advanced preview of it, and it's just great. It's fantastic. So thank you for everything.
That's great. Thanks, and hope to see you on the road at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye now. And there you have it, folks, my interview with guitarist Richie Kotzen. Please check out his new album, Salting Earth, and while you're checking stuff out, yes, of course, check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON, and on Instagram at Mitch_Lafon. There you go. Thank you to Richie. Thank you to everybody for listening, and that's it. Bye for now.